Okay, we're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Land Use Stewardship Committee meeting on the 23rd of October. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director Kennett.
Yes.
Director Sutherland. Here. Director Dominguez. Here.
Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Okay, so we have minutes from the 24th of July. I would need a motion.
I move to approve. I'll second. Director Kennett.
Yes.
Director Sutherland. Yes. Director Dominguez.
Okay, so our total business today is to receive presentation Racha Canada del Oro Trail Planning and Project. Jennifer, I believe you're the staff member to address this. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Director Kennett. Good evening, directors. Jennifer Peth, the Senior Open Space Planner, here to share an update on the Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve Regional Trail Planning Project. So our agenda tonight will cover the overall project goals. We'll be sharing the trail concept alternatives that we have, as well as considerations for backcountry camping as part of this project, and then project next steps and schedule. And then my ask of the committee this evening is to please provide feedback on the trail concept alternatives, as well as guidance to staff on whether to pursue backcountry camping feasibility as part of the project. So to get us all oriented here, this is a map of our jurisdiction, and we have Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve on our western boundary. This is an acre, the preserve is approximately 5,400 acres. It's near to Calero County Park, which is nearly around 5,000 acres as well, and then Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve, which is nearly 20,000 acres. So within this connected network of parks and open space. The goals of the Regional Trail Planning Project are to expand, of course, regional trail connectivity at the preserve. An important part of that is conducting an analysis of existing roads to understand which roads we could use as part of the new trail system, but also to reduce impacts associated with the construction of new roads, but also understand where it's important to realign to avoid impacts, associated with sedimentation from road runoff, and where there might be problematic issues that will cause problems in terms of ongoing long-term maintenance. We also want to avoid and minimize impacts to cultural and natural resources and wildlife connectivity, and engage the public and project partners on what backcountry amenities, in addition to the trail, are of interest, including backcountry camping. So the existing facilities that we have at Rancho Cañada del Oro include a looped trail system that links up with Calero County Park. You can do 8 to 12 miles loop trails there. We have nearly 1 mile of accessible and interpretive trails. There are 2 parking lots, main parking lot in Casa Loma and overflow parking lot, as well as equestrian staging area. We have restrooms and picnic areas. And with the newly constructed bridge over Yagas Creek, we have the ability to now access the southern 1,800-acre portion of the preserve, formerly inaccessible south of Yagas Creek. So the expanded trails will be in this southern portion of the preserve that you see below here. This is a map of the countywide trails master plan. This was updated in December of 2024. We have Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve here. The goal of the regional trails for Santa Clara County Parks is to connect urban and open spaces to, the urban urban areas to parks and open spaces, as well as connect those parks and open spaces to each other. So you see here, like I mentioned, Rancho is there next to Clare County Park and Sierra Azul. It's envisioned in a north to south trail connection that would ultimately connect, New Almaden, Quicksilver County Park to Mount Madonna in the south and to points east, including Tilton Ranch and Coyote Valley. All right, so as far as those trail concept alternatives, what went into the development of those included a number of trail scouting site visits that we were checking on grade and feasibility as well as user experience. We did that existing conditions road analysis, like I mentioned, investigation of biological resources and within the vicinity of the proposed trail alignments. And then we also conducted a survey in the winter of spring to understand what interests and amenities people had for a new trail system at Rancho Cañada del Oro. So I'll share some of the feedback that we heard from that survey. We received over 775 responses. The survey was distributed among user groups, so there was some advocates. We heard from some user group advocates, which was great. We encouraged the distribution of the survey among these groups. But just to note that it is one input, for consideration. It's not a scientific survey. So what we heard is that people prefer longer trails, 6+ miles in length. They're interested in a mix of flat, moderate, and steep terrain. They are interested in something that offers a mix of out and back and loop trails. And there's a demand for single-use trails, but overall, the preference is for multi-use trails. So I'll just go through the data quickly so you can see how kind of the responses were distributed. But here's showing that 6+ mile trail length, the mix of flat, moderate, and steep compared to other. This is that mix of loop and out and back trails compared to either just loop or just out and back trail systems. And then the preference for multi-use trails compared to just biking, hiking, or equestrian trails. This is the distribution of survey responses. So home zip codes, we received the greatest number of responses from around the project area, but also around the bay. These are the 3 trail concept alternatives that took that feedback into account, as well as those trail scouting site visits and existing conditions analysis. So I'll go through each of these, beginning with alternative 1, the inner loop trail. So this would be a 4.5 mile round trip trail. It includes a 1 mile loop at the end and covers 1.6 miles of existing roadway. This is an aerial perspective of that trail, which would be at the end looking north. You see there the existing parking areas, and then further trails to the north in the white dashed line, but showing you that ridgeline experience. This is some of the habitat types that you would expect to see on that trail: mixed oak woodland, some riparian areas. There's some chamise and sage that you would see at the end of that 1 mile loop, and some of the views. The next trail, the Regional Focus Trail, this is the longest trail, 5.8 miles in total round trip. There's a 1.2 mile loop trail at the end, and this covers also 1.6 miles of existing ranch road. This is again the perspective aerial view looking north. And some of the views and habitat types that you would get along that trail, beginning with some blue oak, rare blue oak woodlands at the beginning, and some serpentine grasslands that you would expect to see at the end, near the end. This is the third alternative, stacked loops to regional views. This is 4.0 miles of total trail, 3.2 miles of which would be newly constructed single track trail, and we're proposing a 0.8 mile hiking only connector trail as part of the stacked loop system. There would be the opportunity to implement one-way trails also as part of the system. And this would build on that existing loop network that we have at the northern area of the preserve. This is giving you that, again, aerial perspective view. And some of the habitat types that you'll see along the trail, more riparian and mixed oak woodland, some great rock outcroppings, and then also you're still getting some of those awesome ridgeline views. All right, so to begin on backcountry camping considerations, we brought the concept of backcountry camping to the board and use and management committee in 2018 and 2019. This was associated with a potential external funding opportunity for backcountry camping at Sierra Vista. The external funding fell through, but what we're looking for tonight, again, is whether or not we should continue to pursue the backcountry camping concept at Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve. This would be something that we would ultimately bring to the full board for kind of no-go, no-go decision as part of the project if we were to move forward. All right, so this map here, I showed earlier the preserve in relation to the regional trails. This map is showing the Bay Area Ridge Trail. So the Bay Area Ridge Trail is envisioned as a 500, if you're not familiar, envisioned as a 500-mile trail that encircles the San Francisco Bay along the surrounding ridgelines, of which about 400 miles to date have been completed. The red, solid red, is showing constructed current existing trail, and the dashed blue is showing planned or conceptual trail. So you see here how potential open space authority campsites and existing partner campsites, including Santa Clara County Parks, East Bay Regional Parks, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and state parks could provide that kind of regional hiking, camping, backpacking experience. Whether as part of a regional backpacking trip or just to one location, this is providing a unique way for people to connect with nature. So what backcountry camping means to the Open Space Authority, it's something that we envision to have access to a restroom as well as non-potable water. We would provide tent pads. This would be a hike-in, sort of no vehicle access. This would be pack it in, pack it out, leave no trace concept, reservation only, we envision. And something that we take as inspiration is this California State Parks environmental camping definition, which are campsites located in relatively undisturbed natural settings with a table, clearing for a tent, and primitive toilet nearby. This is showing the map on the screen here is showing the potential sites for camping in relation to the existing road network, which is shown in green, and those proposed new trails in the purple. So if we were to move forward, continuing to pursue camping feasibility at the preserve as part of the project, we would additionally investigate what a reservation system might look like, what specific amenities we might provide for user groups, as well as accessibility. Campfires and cook stoves, we likely would not allow campfires, but how we might be able to accommodate cook stoves. And seasonality, or how, what times of year the campsite was in operation. All right, so next steps overall on the project is to identify the preferred trail corridor. So take public feedback and feedback that we've heard from the committees, including here tonight. And I'll describe some of the upcoming ongoing engagement opportunities that we have. We would determine an approach for implementation and phasing as we move forward with feasibility, understanding the full estimated cost of the project for construction. We would formalize the project scope with that preferred trail corridor and whether or not backcountry camping were included, and then conduct environmental review on the project. And like I said, bring for board approval. This is showing the schedule for completion of that final preferred trail corridor plan over this winter. And then those engagement opportunities that I mentioned. So we have a public survey that's currently open, seeking feedback on those 3 trail concept alternatives. We are offering in-person guided hikes at the preserve within the project area on November 1st and the 4th. There are still spots open, so you can share with your networks. And then we'll be hosting an online workshop on November 12th. Okay, and I'll wrap it up there.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you very much. I attended the CAC meeting where you did this presentation, and the comments of the CAC were very telling, are very thoughtful, and there were a lot of them. And so, before we look at a proposed trail, I know that Justin had concerns with the grazing and protecting people from cattle. And so I think that that kind of information is information that the whole board should have too. So we can make a better decision. And then, the comments that I heard too is that the CAC members did not support camping. They also did not support dogs. And so I would like to see the CAC comments included in any report that goes to the full board, because they are our folks out there. And then I had a couple of questions, and it seemed like most of the responses were from around the Morgan Hill area. Is that correct?
That's right.
And I don't know if the request for camping, is that coming from that group?
Yes, if I could respond, we asked about what was another one of the survey questions that we asked in the winter spring survey was what additional amenities are you interested in? We asked about benches and restrooms and as well as campsites. Campsites was mid, it wasn't in the top 3, I'll say, or even maybe the top 5 of
And if I
yeah.
spoke about El Toro at the last board meeting, campsites were mentioned then too. Is that correct? No, I remember campsites someplace else. No, okay. I wasn't sure if, maybe I was confusing what I heard at the CAC with that. Okay. And then, so the California program, the low impact program, how successful is it? Are there any, I would like to have that information come back too. Does California see any challenges? Does the state see challenges with it? Are there any issues created that they didn't anticipate? And the stacked loop option, but I don't know how that fits with the grazing program. But I know that during COVID, the one-way trails, especially at Coyote, were really popular, and so they're kind of nice. I don't, I think we need to be careful and make sure that we take into consideration all of our partners.
I could provide a response to some of the comment. Yeah. In 2018, 2019, when we were working on some feasibility of backcountry camping, we had gone to a few partners, including Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District and county parks, and asked about their experience with campgrounds, including about trash. There were concerns about trash that we heard from the Citizens Advisory Committee, about fire certainly was something that the land managers were concerned about. So there is a summary of what we heard at that time in the Use Management Committee memo, which I should have linked, so we can provide more information on that. But yeah, Derek, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, I mean, from my perspective with the backcountry camping, I mean, I'm an avid backpacker. And so I've used sites like this before, and I was on a trip with Jen up to the Black Mountain campsite. And generally, they're gonna be low impact as far as the area goes. It's not a campground. We're talking about one or two sites only. I know, and so what I heard from the CAC sounded to me like they were thinking it was more group orientated, lots of different sites with the potential to be getting out of hand with noise and
Yeah.
pollution and that type of stuff. And that's not what we're envisioning here. We're envisioning one site, maybe two max at any one area. And so that, from a staff perspective, it's very manageable,
Okay.
easy to be able to get to, access to, and it's almost 2 miles, 2.5 miles in to the site. And it's also, I've also been part of the Bay Area Ridge Trail planning for a long time, and having backcountry sites about 8 to 10 miles apart is ideal for those that are seeking that experience on the Bay Area Ridge Trail. If we were to eliminate Rancho Cañada del Oro from that loop, then you might have a much longer distance that you'd have to travel between backcountry sites from Sierra Azul, which Midfin would have a site on Sierra Azul now, as opposed to the Black Mountain, and then over at Mount Madonna as well. So kind of a critical location for having that, just something to consider.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful information. Yeah, especially if it's gonna be a link for Bay Area Ridge Trail. Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
And then on the grazing part of it, that will be something that we would engage Justin with. We have currently on Blair, we have 3 pastures that fencing that we have the options for, where this one trail ends would go into, one of the options would go into a single pasture, one of them would go into 2, none of them go into all 3. And then there's also potentially a 4th pasture that we could make to address his concerns about calving and cattle. And it really is about timing of where we would have the cattle. And this would potentially take some adjustment on his part to having the entire 1,500 acre or 898 acre Blair Ranch, and only having a section of maybe 400 acres to be able to work with. So there's some education there as well, but we've seen very little conflicts between cattle and humans on Sierra Vista. Even at Rancho, it's the same cattle that are going out there. They just don't generally are calving where the public is right now.
Okay.
So there is that aspect too. But so far we've not run into any. I mean, most of the time people get spooked because the mom will like stop and look at the human, and then the human doesn't realize, like, she's just making sure that you don't come toward her. She's not ready to go after you.
Thank you. And the CAC was super engaged and they were very thoughtful. And so I wanted to make sure that their comments and their thoughts were incorporated in anything we get back as the board, because I went, oh, well, look at there. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Jennifer, thank you so much for the presentation and for being here with us today. I had a question around the backcountry, and I apologize, I don't know this information. But is this a new direction for OSA? Is this the first 2 locations of backcountry camping that we're planning? And if so, does it align with the OSA strategic vision? It's a concept that we're moving forward to establishing because it allows for more individuals to connect with the Ridge Trail.
Yeah, I can take a first pass, and then if anyone else wants to jump in. Yes, so it is, like I said, we had considered backcountry camping at Sierra Vista. So we had begun, done some initial feasibility work on that. And then it's also an allowed use per our conservation easement with the Habitat Agency at Myoneokma-Cody Ridge Open Space Preserve. So it's something that we've envisioned as part of the experiences that we provide in terms of connecting people with nature and working with our partners. So yeah, if anyone has anything else to add.
If I may, through the chair, I'll just add that Jennifer hit it, something we've been envisioning for a really long time, and this would really just be kind of the first time we're implementing. So with all that she just said, there's still a lot we need to figure out. And so the CAC's strong reaction, That's really one of the reasons we wanted to get some direction from this committee, if it's something we should continue to pursue, because, you know, we really do need to dig into the details, both the environmental impacts, and then how we're gonna manage it, ongoing, you know, working with Derek and his team is gonna be critical to the success. And so, if this committee wants us to pursue that, we would continue researching, find precedents, address some of these concerns, and then bring it back to the full board, and have some of those details worked out and how we would maintain and operate in the long term.
Beautiful chair, for the field part of it, no, I mean, I'm the one longest the tooth here, along with Alex. And so we've been thinking about backcountry camping since about 2006. And as Jen had mentioned earlier, you know, we had pursued a grant from the Bay Area Ridge Trail over at Sierra Vista that ultimately failed to come to fruition, but it's always been something that we've envisioned, especially being partners with the Bay Area Ridge Trail. As for a maintenance aspect of it and the cost to it, as you'll hear later in my presentation to the full board about expenditures of the field, adding an amenity to a preserve really isn't adding that much to it, because we're already going to be out there, we're going to be maintaining it, we're going to be on the trails, doing trail patrols and that type of stuff. And so just walking to a backcountry site to check it for any trash or anything else would be very minimal as far as cost wise goes. Our record at Rancho Quinana del Oro is a clientele visitation that practices leave no trace pretty good. As you may be aware, we have no trash cans at Rancho Quinana del Oro, and the amount of trash we pick up is very minimal. So we see the same impact out at these sites. Again, these are not drive-up sites. They're not going to be ones that you're going to bring alcohol to and coolers and a bunch of stuff like that. So we foresee it to be a much more crowd that's representative of what currently uses Rancho Quinana del Oro.
Thank you. I also wanted to know, is there conversation with Bay Area Ridge right now for funding support?
Yes, so we have received a grant for $40,000 toward the planning and construction of the trail portion of the project here.
But no, a conversation around the maintenance of camping,
That's right.
There,
like they did in 2018.
yeah, maintenance is hard to get
Yeah.
any kind of funding for. We are always looking for it. It's usually paying for either the planning or the actual construction of it or the amenity itself. And that's always something we can like go back to them and see, especially if we move forward with the camping. We may be able to like secure a grant from them to help fund the actual construction of the site itself. That's something to keep in mind.
And then going to the 3 trails that you showed us just now, which one of the 3 is like less invasive as far as like the ecosystem? Which one would be like, would have less implications, I guess, in building it up?
I'm thinking one measure of that might be the amount of the trail that would have.
Mileage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right. So it would be I believe I could look back, but I believe the first has the least amount of, so alternative 1, the inner loop, has the lowest number of miles of new trail that would be constructed as one measure of potential environmental impact.
And when we're surveying or when we're sharing the survey with the 3 options, are we indicating that on the survey that this would have the less implication to the environment?
I think that so we would do environmental review on the preferred alternative. Like I said, the amount of trail construction would be one measure of environmental impact. Yeah, if any.
Through the chair, that's a great answer, Jennifer. Maybe just a little bit of context in understanding sort of the basis of the alternatives with respect to environmental issues. I'm proud to say that none of the alternatives to me are like bad from an ecological standpoint, and kind of built into the design of these trails in particular is kind of this idea of maintaining large blocks of undivided habitat in the preserve. So kind of like fundamental to, okay, we got to start around that parking lot, and there's a grant deed, grant need to get into Blair, right? Those are kind of the constraints. But within that, you know, we've avoided very large areas that, you know, I think are really core habitat specifically for mountain lion and mountain lion movement, which we get collar data from the Puma project showing their activity. And we know that mountain lions, among other species, you know, really kind of move out of the area when you have ongoing regular human presence. So I think from an ecological standpoint, I am not concerned about any of the trail alternatives, and generally we wouldn't recommend them to you or give them as an option unless it had some sort of outstanding quality for another reason. So Jennifer's right that, you know, there's like the construction impact of the trails that's obviously greater with. I think the other thing I think about quite a bit in terms of like this kind of mental model of trail impacts is really just around like the frequency of use. You know, so like at Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, which I love, people are doing a circuit there like constantly, right? And so if you're an animal, there's not like a moment where you're like thinking about crossing the trail that someone's not right there, right? Whereas at Blair and at Rancho, the use is a lot more episodic. It's harder to get into this kind of territory. So there's a lower frequency of use for, you know, kind of in general. Maybe it spikes on the weekends or whatever, but so for me, you know, animals are more likely to sort of coexist with our trail system when it's kind of more in the backcountry, as it were. So you know, yeah, the different alignments have their different kind of foibles, I would say, from an environmental perspective, but none that I think are like big enough to be like a driver for your consideration.
Yeah, if I may through the chair, I'll just add kind of to summarize all the great things Aaron just said. We really, when we're trail planning, build in from the very front end, the roads analysis, looking at where we can reuse existing roads, right? Looking at consolidating impacts, like the loop trails are near the existing parking lot staging area in the area that we worked with Derek and Aaron, and our resource consultants to look at where we'd have the most impacts. And so very early on, we eliminated those alternatives that were the most impactful. And so what we have in front of us is the least impactful alternatives, and there are options within those, but consolidating the development, the loop trails near the existing facilities, and then the regional trails, which have much less use, which are mostly on existing roads, kind of the big options. And there's one more thing I was going to mention, but I forgot, so I'll just drop that away.
Thank you. And then just my last question, how did you distribute the survey?
The survey, I have a slide, so it went out via our newsletter. It went out to a stakeholder interest list, which has approximately 400 folks. It's been distributed to, it just went out on the 17th. So, but I do have a slide here summarizing it, which I could pull up if this is helpful. So we did. Unless it went away. Make sure there. Social media, we just sent out postcards to neighbors. We're sending out postcards to neighbors. And then I know we did some ethnic media circulation for the last survey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so the survey is distributed in 4 languages: English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And yeah.
No. You answered most of my questions regarding the planting. And I like the idea because it does add a new dimension to what we have to offer. If all the campgrounds were full, how many people do you envision who would at any given time?
We would anticipate that the sites would hold no more than 6 occupants. So if we had 2 sites located there, that would be a maximum of 24 people in Rancho, being 2 campsites at either location, if we were to activate both. An option would be only having a single one in the very beginning, with a phase 2 being the second one if the first one works out well, like we anticipated to.
So I wonder how that's gonna fly when people start wanting to make a reservation after the route trip on the Bay Area Ridge Trail is open. Could be pretty complicated, pretty crowded. So it could be frustrating too. So part of me says, yeah, that's plenty, but yeah, another part of me says maybe we we should think of a third site somewhere along the way. And again, this is in conjunction, thinking about the barrier loop trail. But I'm glad to hear that you don't see any impact on your land force in terms of maintaining these campgrounds. It's a good thing. The other thing is, I noticed we touch on Blair Ranch with these extensions, but we don't go into Blair Ranch on purpose, is that right? Any thought of going further into Blair Ranch, on a, depending on the season, et cetera, like that?
Potentially as far as part of a future phase, so all three of these alternatives do enter at least the Blair Ranch property, so they cross the fence line into the Blair Ranch where we are required to provide public access per our conservation easement with Santa Clara County Parks.
So, you need some specific answers from us. So, one of them is should we continue with the campsite, thing? What say you?
I'd say yes, keep it as an option, yeah, to get more information.
Yeah, obviously there's a way to go, but it looks like it's pretty well planned out.
I agree.
Same thing. What else specifically do you want from us?
And any feedback that you have to share on the trail alternatives. Just thank you, Kathy.
I'd like to see costs associated with the trail.
Okay.
With each, I think that would be information I'd like to see as well.
Just the nature of our beast is making of trails and things is easy. We get money, we do it, the maintenance and such.
Exactly.
Where we're looking to find other sources, so. Being long in the tooth, we were an acquisition organization when I first joined it, now we're a maintenance organization, so. That's just life. After being successful. Any other specifics from us?
Unless there's anything you have to share. This is helpful for now.
Any comments, clerk, from our adoring public?
Very good.
So there. Anything else for the good of the cause here?
I did have one follow-up question for this. It's okay. Will there be who will maintain the reservation system, and will there be a fee for using the campsites?
So we would be the ones managing the reservation site. Now, we had attempted to dabble in that with Yodel Pass. That didn't work out the way that we wanted it to. So we're going to be looking for a different vendor, and this would fold into that along with any kind of parking reservations we have for my own Yakima during busy seasons and other ones. So the reservation would be on us. As far as fee, it has always been our intention to have it free. So there would be no fee for the camping. And that would be something that the board could also decide on whether they wanted to charge. But going into it, we were thinking that it would be a free of charge.
Is the Bay Area Ridge Trail charge for the campsites? We know.
I don't know that there are any that the Ridge Trail specifically operates. I believe Mid-Penn has a nominal fee. I believe it was $6 for the Montebello Black Mountain Campground.
I know they have some plan. I don't know. It's gonna come to that. So how do we coordinate with them? Because if we're on the Ridge Trail and they're charging $6 or whatever it is.
I think that's something that we would have to look at in future conversations, because each individual landowner is going to charge whatever they charge. I mean, we have always been free of charge, so that would be something that the board would have to take up, and then that opens up a whole nother discussion about actually taking in money and how do we handle that. So that would speak to the reservation system. We might go outside of the organization then to figure out a different type of reservation that could handle money and transactions in that nature.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult to help have Airbnb campsites, but the thing is, if the Ridge Trail is gonna have a reservation system, we have to be on board. Clearly.
As far as I know, the Ridge Trail itself does not have a backcountry reservation that is in coordination with all of the other entities. So if that were to be something, that's something we could look into with them to see about regional coordination. As far as I know right now, there is no talk of that. It is literally just done by the individual agency, just like the Pacific Crest Trail is. You get the reservations through each one. The Pacific Crest Trail has evolved lately to help with getting those reservations. But it's nowhere near at that level yet.
Okay, well, hopefully I'm not throwing a monkey wrench in the conversation. Something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to the results. We are adjourned.